All right, part two of our classification system here. We just talked about naming. Now, after naming, this careless Linnaeus also took the time, as I shouldn't say after part of naming, is he took the time to organize this classification system on where we group organisms that are more similarly related to each other, and we kind of have this series of like cascading folders. All right. Um, I said, think about like files on your computer. If I were to go onto my laptop right now, I would have a file labeled high school teaching, and you open that up, and then a folder labeled biology, and you open that up, and there'd be a folder labeled taxonomy, and you open that up, and then within that would be the assignments and those kind of things for this unit. All right. My teaching material is not just saved in 300 random files on my desktop. Maybe you're that person. Maybe you have way too many things on your desktop. But if you have a lot of things, it make your life easier if you organize and sort them into folders as you're going. Same here with animals, or not animals, organisms. Um, we group them in these different categories. So domain, that is the largest category. All right. There's only 3 domains that are out there. Then kingdom, phylum, class, order, family, genus, species, all the way down to the end. And like we talked about yesterday, your scientific name or the scientific name of whatever we're looking for is going to be in the genus and species category. So those 2 things put together. There's a couple different mnemonic devices over there that we've come up with over the years to help you remember the order of those terms. I still use the second one there on a daily basis, not daily basis. Whenever I teach this, I'm using that second one there. So just start looking how it looks. So you might have your animal kingdom. Within that, there's the Chordata phylum, meaning they have a backbone. Mammalia class, that means you're a mammal. Carnivora, meaning you're eating meat. Then within there, there's the cat family, and then the genus species that gets us the African leopard there. So those are all the folders that species falls into place there. The more folders that you have in common with the different species, the more closely related you are to that species. You see that? Oh man, I thought it was gonna come out. Here's the human folders that we fit into: Animalia, Chordata, Mammalia, same as the African leopard. But then we break apart. We're in the primate order because we have thumbs and larger brains and those kind of things. Hominidae family. There are no longer any surviving members of the Hominidae family. Then Homo and Sapien would be our last 2. Here's a look at how we determine what things are more closely related to other things. All right, so lions and tigers we know are very similar related. If you look at all the folders they fit into, lions and tigers fit into the same folders all the way down to the species. They are so similarly related they can actually interbreed with one another. Doesn't make a sterile offspring, but they can interbreed. Versus if you look at ducks and tigers, they're in the animal kingdom. They're in the Chordata phylum, meaning they have backbones. But then after their paths diverge. Okay, we talked about binomial nomenclature. So how do you define that species? Okay, so lions and tigers are so closely related. What is that make it a different species? It's when you can produce fertile offspring. All right. So like I said, lions and tigers can produce offspring, but that is a liger and that is sterile. That organism cannot reproduce on its own. Same thing with horses and donkeys producing mules. The kingdoms. All right, let's get into these kingdoms and how we sort things within those kingdoms. I'm going to stick to some basics here, and essentially is how many cells do they have, how it obtains its energy, and then what type of cell are they composed of. That's kind of the information you need to classify things into kingdoms. So moving on, first up, the animal kingdom, the one we're probably most familiar with. That is a multicellular organism. So all the organisms in the animal kingdom have more than one cell. They are heterotrophic. We learned that word a long time ago, but that means they have to consume their food. And they are eukaryotic, meaning that their cells have a nucleus. All right, so organisms that have more than one cell, they have to eat, and their cells have more than one nucleus. I'm sorry, their cells have a nucleus. Those fall into the animal category or kingdom. Now, not all these things would we call animals. Birds, mammals, reptiles, humans, sure. Insects and worms, those animals? Well, no, they're bugs, but bugs are animals as well. all right, in the scientific phrase. There's the animal kingdom, the plant kingdom, all right, that we covered a little bit in the fall. Plant kingdom is multicellular, so plants have more than one cell. They are autotrophic, meaning they make their own food, and they are eukaryotic, so they have a nucleus. Another thing to point out is they also have cell walls as a cell part. That's an additional point there, but pretty much anything that has those four categories falls into the plant kingdom. Next kingdom are the fungi. All right. Now we look here, they're multicellular, most of them. They're heterotrophic, mainly decomposers, and they're eukaryotic. That's pretty much the same as animals. The difference is fungi have cell walls. All right. So fungi have cell walls. Animals do not. That's an important note to point out in the kingdom fungi. And then we have kingdom Protista. These are unicellular. So there's our cell difference there. So they're mostly unicellular. They can be heterotrophic or autotrophic. And then they all have a nucleus. So amoeba, spelled wrong, paramecium, euglena, algae, all those things. Essentially think of like microorganisms that live in like pond water and lake water and those kind of things. These are the protozoa or the protist kingdom. We are going to talk about them a little bit one day coming up here. So those are the four main kingdoms within the eukaryotic domain. So those are the four kingdoms of things that have nuclei. There are two domains that do not have a nuclei. And most live in water with the protozoa. And we've talked about them before. Okay, so the Eubacteria and the Archaea bacteria, the last two, they are so different that they have their own domain. Now, when I was in high school, we didn't learn that. We just learned the kingdoms. Since then, they've gone back and they've kind of reevaluated and they've said, well, they're actually different enough that they should be in their own domain, something different. So we have the Eubacteria, which are bacteria that we think of today. And then we have the Archaea bacteria. Those are Archaea. They're their own kind of, I don't even want to call them necessarily bacteria, but they are their own kind of bacteria that live in extreme environments, that consume weird things. We'll have a day where we talk about Archaea. So in these two domains, they are unicellular. They can be autotrophic or heterotrophic. And the biggest thing is they don't have a nucleus. All right. So their cells are very fundamentally different than the cells of those previous four kingdoms that we talked about. All right. There's a little bit about the kingdoms. Here's a little bit more notes on the different domains in there to help you out as you're looking through stuff. And then here's a look at kind of the tree of life within the domain viewpoint there of just how things are how things are related and kind of some common traits that are shared there. So anyway, hey, I'll stop there. It is plenty for today.